1 week from today is Halloween, so if my next slide scares you a little bit, if the prospect of answering what's going to be on the next slide scares you a little bit, maybe that's intentional. Answering the question, is your training successful? So this is a big question. It's a simple question, but it's a big question. I'm going to get into a little bit about how Inside NGO, how my organization has approached this, at least started to approach this. But first I want to break down this question a little bit. Again, this will be high level. I think this will be fairly obvious for most of the people in the room, but just to frame what we're talking about here. So this is a difficult question. Why is this a difficult question, especially for us in the association world? I break it down to three different things. At the top there is our learner who comes to our training event or our conference, and then they fade back off into the mist there, and they go back to their own organization. So maintaining contact with our learners is a challenge. Down here we have this wonderful woman who just won a swimming contest. She's able to measure and define her success very clearly. At least at Inside NGO, I'm not sure how it is at your associations. We have a bit of a more difficult time helping our professionals define success. What does success look like? Thirdly, those little cogs there, those little gears are supposed to represent the fact that training is just one cog in the wheel of a large ecosystem, so attribution is a real challenge of ours too. Why is this important? Why do we care? Again, this is sort of monitoring and evaluation 101. If we can understand what's happening, what we're doing, we can better tell our story. We can tell a more complete story about what we do. And even more important, we can make good decisions that improve what we're doing in terms of training and also build upon the successes that we're having. So again, very high level, very straightforward though. It's challenging and it's very important. So what is my organization? What is Inside NGO doing? Or what have we done? Probably like a lot of your organizations, we started with just using hunches, using anecdotal evidence, taking our best guess at what was working, what wasn't working. When I joined the organization, I was asked to do something a little different, to be a little bit more systematic about measuring our success. So I pictured us maybe doing something akin to a full program audit or an evaluation, a full-blown, sort of study of our learning offerings. And I got overwhelmed by that prospect. I got overwhelmed by the amount of effort it would take, the amount of resources it would take, and figuring at the end of the day, I wasn't sure if we were going to really learn anything until I came across a man named Rob Brinkerhoff, who has created something called the success case method. And this is what Inside NGO has modified and is using or is starting to use to measure the success of what we're doing with our training offerings. Speaking mostly of the workshops that we offer, although we have thought about this for the annual conference that we do also. Just spending a minute or two on what the success case method is all about. There's 6 basic steps or six basic aspects to it. First of all, he says you need to focus and plan your study. He talks about success case studies. So focus and plan. So understand why you're trying to answer the question of why is your training successful? Think about the resources you have, the timeline, the stakeholders who are going to be involved. Sort of really think about the focus and the plan. How are you going to execute on this study? Secondly, he talks about measuring or defining what success looks like. So again, for my organization, this can be a very challenging prospect, but he really talks about thinking about the competencies that you're trying to support, the application of those competencies, the key results that can happen, and then the business impact of that. That's sort of the framework that has helped me really think through what success can look like. Thirdly, then you identify apparently successful people who've been through your intervention, in our instance, the training that we do. Identify those who have apparently been successful, and then you need to, sorry, I'm losing my vocabulary now, of course. You have to verify, that's the word I was looking for. You have to verify that they were successful, and then you can explore that success and then learn from that success, right? So these are the 6 steps. First, you focus and plan your study, and then you say what success would look like. Then you identify, verify, explore, and learn. So I'm going to actually skip the first 2 because I think that's more context dependent for each of you at your organizations to figure out. And I'm going to jump into how Inside NGO identifies those who are apparently successful. Again, noting the fact that it's difficult to maintain contact with our learners. So what we do is we take from our large pool of workshop participants. So participants in our workshops are invited to participate in what we call a booster program. I spoke about this at the Learning Technology and Design Conference that Tagoras put on in May. This is an opportunity for people to do follow-on learning through short series of scenario-based emails that we send to people. I have decided that people who engage in those emails at a high level are apparently successful. And the final question that I ask them, I ask a series of sort of knowledge-based questions, but the final question I ask is, how have you applied new knowledge and skills in the workplace? So those who have engaged and answered that question in a way that appears to have garnered some success, I reach out to them to see if they would like to participate in a success case interview. So this is sort of the identification phase of the process for us. As I said before, the next phases are to verify and to explore, and that's done through a success case interview. So those who agree to do an interview, we get on the phone for about a 30-minute interview. Again, the point of this is not to be sort of overly burdensome and have a resource-intensive study. So through this process, we're able to very quickly get to the point of doing an interview, doing a short interview. Step 1, just learn who the person is. Who are you? Who do you work for? What do you do in your job? What are your roles and responsibilities? But then we get into asking about what new knowledge or skills have you applied in the workplace? And this is the verification step. And I'd say in about half of the interviews I've done at this point, I realize there probably really isn't much here, unfortunately. It looked like there might have been something, might have been some success there, but they don't really have much to offer in terms of a real success story. But we continue with the interview either way, and we talk about the results that have been achieved because of the application of new knowledge and skills in the workplace. And then finally, we talk about the tangible value of those results. So if you think about it, again, going back to sort of a traditional monitoring and evaluation framework, for those of you who do or know about monitoring and evaluation, you can think of the second bullet point there as sort of the output. You can think of the third one as sort of the outcome, so what has changed as a result of what they're doing. And then finally, you can look at impact at the bottom, and you can learn really what they're doing in the workplace and why that matters to their job. The bullet point I didn't add in here is we also want to know what has made them successful, what from especially tying it back to the training intervention that they participated in with us, what about that helped them be successful? And then the sort of the opposite end of that is, what else could we do to help you be successful? Quickly, just getting into some of the successes and challenges that we've encountered. This is a fairly new model that we've embarked on. But on the positive side, we have really struck some more meaningful engagement with our learners. Through that booster program, through the interview, they really appreciate the fact that Inside NGO, my organization, is not just interested in the 2 or 3 days or however long we spend with them in the training room. We're really interested in being partners in their learning. And they really do show appreciation for that. And through that also, we have identified champions. We've identified some leaders in the field who are really doing good work, and we can, sort of maintain contact with them and really tell their story and, celebrate them, but also talk about how we've helped them in that, in their journey to success. On the challenge side, you can imagine the timing of the interview has been sort of it's been a balance. Because I was first trying to conduct the interviews sort of early on so I could draw closer connections to the workshop, but I was doing the interviews too quickly because I would have these conversations and ask the questions about the value, especially once we got down to the value of the results. They didn't really have much to say. There just hadn't been time for that value proposition to really play out. But I also realized if I wait too long, that tying it back to the workshop is going to get lost in the sea of again, the whole ecosystem of their world. So that's still a balance we're still trying to work out. And then the other challenge is really making use of these success cases. So I've done about 20 of these interviews. I've shared some of the results with our marketing communication folks. I brought up some of the results with the learning team, but we haven't really figured out a comprehensive, cohesive way to build this into our process and make sure that we're making the best use of the data, of the information, of the stories that we're collecting. So that is sort of, again, a very high-level overview of what we're doing with sort of a modification of the Rob Brinkerhoff success case method.
Great.